So we're on this week. We're back after a little bit of a break. Let's address that first. So fundamentally, it's summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. Let me be specific. And ultimately, everyone wants to go away, spend some time with their family, friends, kids, etc. We're no different. So we've had a few weeks out of the mix. That coupled with the fire and everything else, it gave us a bit of a chance to recoup, catch up, and get back into a position where we're being proactive rather than reactive. So just before I think the fire actually happened, we had or it was just after, I think we had a visitor come over to see us, a pair of visitors. It was Tamas and Nico. You know these guys from online. And basically they came to the workshop. They traveled independently from 2 different countries, came to the UK, and they did a bit of a round robin around this glorious island of ours, meeting and greeting different people in the watch space. One of those was Nico. Nico's joining us today all the way from Finland. Is that right, Nico?
Yep.
Welcome, mate. Welcome.
Finland. Thank you.
So, mate, yeah, I mean, you came out to see us a few weeks back, pal, and spent a day or so in the workshop and getting the grips. And I think you even had a little go at making your own strap at one point. What we like to do before we get into too much of this, mate, with everyone, is start from the beginning. So naturally, I've told everyone roughly where you're from, but if you could give us a bit of a background on you, mate, who are you, where you're from, how did you get into this watch space of ours?
Yeah, my name is Nico. Everybody knows me as host Nico. I'm quite a private person. Not many actually know the rest of my name because I like to keep it that way. And I'm from the land of 1,000 lakes. Only Canada and Russia has more lakes than us. And I've been running a podcast about watches like you, not on the same level. I'm learning a lot from you.
Mate, don't learn off me. Calvin's the man. The producer in the studio with us is that's the brains of this outfit, mate, not me. But I appreciate it.
Don't be modest. You have 2 producers. I have none. But yeah, I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I've been into the watch hobby for many, many years. 21 in September 18th.
Just a minute then.
Yeah.
And you're based over in Finland?
Yes, northern Finland.
So you're heavily involved then, mate?
In
Sweden, okay. Right. So are you in Sweden or Finland?
From where I live, you can take a boat to Sweden and you'll be there in an hour or so.
Wow. Mate, I'm jealous of you. That's a glorious part of the world. It's just stunning.
It's beautiful. There is no doubt here.
Oh, mate, I try and get up to the Nordics as much as I can. Over the last 2 years, I think I've been twice. I love taking the children in the winter. It's nothing like it. It's absolutely incredible. So I
felt the same way about Scotland and England. I mean, there is so much beauty that I'm not used to it. So both me and Thomas were like, oh, look at this.
It's odd, isn't it? When you live somewhere, it becomes normal. And it's only when
definitely, yeah.
When you travel and you see other places, do you really try or even put yourself in a position where you can understand the beauty of where you came from a little bit better? Do you know what I mean? But to see different things as well, it just opens your horizons and allows you to not only appreciate where you are, but also appreciate where you've just left.
Oh, definitely, yeah, absolutely. So there is so many things that I'm like, oh, we have it better in Finland,
Yeah. No, I can believe that, mate.
I'll give an example. We were in Iceland last year, and I thought we have not a great coffee all the time when I was in Iceland. Sorry, Icelandic people, but I thought Finnish coffee is great when I was there.
And was it better or?
No, Finnish coffee is better than Icelandic coffee. Sorry, guys.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're putting a cat amongst the pigeons.
I'm a big coffee drinker. It matters to me,
Yeah. Well, the cat's out of the bag, yeah. That's a little inside scoop. If you're going to Iceland, don't anticipate the best coffee in the world. But Finland has it. Okay, that's good to know. Something I noticed up there, mate, is everything's a lot more expensive than in UK and continental Europe as such. Naturally, that's because you've got to get things imported and things have got to make rather large journeys. But I didn't make a habit. I try not to make a habit of going out and picking up coffees when I'm in that part of the world, mate. I know the price tag that comes with it. I try and use either what's in the Airbnb or the hotel and take it with me. But when you came over to see us, mate, I mean, I think you'd been up to Scotland first and you were traveling south. Who did you manage to see on that trip?
We went actually just to see Clemens Watches.
Okay.
That was our goal. And because Clemens Watches is Thomas, one of his favorite brands. And Thomas being the initiator of the trip, it was his idea and he convinced me to go. Before that, I actually didn't even know enough about Clemens to be eager to go, and since me being the Nordic watches guy, ambassador and all that, I wasn't really super interested. But when I started studying about the brand and I connected with the owner, it was clear that there is so much more that he has to offer, and we went to Scotland just to meet him, and it was a great trip.
Was it good? You enjoy?
Very good, yeah.
Fantastic.
Very cool place, cool guy, and very cool watches, definitely.
That makes it worthwhile. When you're traveling somewhere, there's always a danger of meeting people and them not being quite what you hoped they were. Do you know what I mean? So when you arrive somewhere,
they say you never meet your heroes,
So they say, yeah. So they say. I must admit, though, I there's not a lot I wouldn't give to meet De Niro or Stallone or Arnie. I'd love to meet them, but they say you should never meet them. I understand that. But yeah, that's a mammoth journey, mate, for you guys to have made there. That's a big old trip, and obviously Thomas is coming from a different country altogether. Talk me through the scenario. How did you two guys find each other? Because your countries apart, really.
Yeah. Well, we're both hardcore watch nerds. I can talk watches 24/7, and I'm surprised I'm still married because most of the watch talk is at home and my wife hears it.
Yeah.
But I talk about watches with a lot of people, and I try to keep diversity. So I learn from different people, different things. From some people, I learn about straps, crystals, materials, and movements and all that. So with Thomas, we connected on a design level. He started talking about, he's really into chronographs.
Yeah.
And when I met him, I was just getting into chronographs. I've been always like utility watches and divers and all that. So we started talking about chronographs, complications, movements, and we became very good friends. What happened is also that he was seeking a certain type of watch to buy, and I gave him the recommendation to buy a certain watch. He did, and that even more because I own the same brand watches. I think it's not wise to mention the brand at the moment, but we became even more close through the journey of both of us inquiring that special pieces from that brand.
Okay, so this was all through Instagram?
Yeah, it was through Instagram, and at that time, I have just started. I have just had my first COVID, so it was a while ago. Fascinating.
I've known Thomas for a number of years now, and he's just a gentleman, absolute gentleman. He's the type of guy that'll just get behind you and support you and engage and
all the way.
Oh, he's fantastic, mate. He's fantastic too. And that's the beauty of this thing, isn't it? I mean, it's for a lot of us, I think it's escapism, and that's what it was always meant to be. And there's a danger sometimes when you're in it too much, it becomes consuming. But when you learn of these relationships that are born from it, and how people from two different parts of the world can find each other and develop a friendship, develop a camaraderie, really, around what is a simple tool that one wears on the wrist, is fantastic to see, and it makes it all worthwhile.
That's the number one thing about this hobby is the people.
It's crazy, isn't it?
The stories, the people, yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, the memories I've built in these 4 years through the podcast, I cannot imagine doing this through my work or even through my free time hobbies.
No, No, there's nothing quite like it, mate. A very, very wise man once told me it's about the clowns and not the circus. And I think that's definitely, a true statement. Really, it's definitely a true statement. So I know where Tamas is, mate, and I know the brands he's into and geographically where he's located and what he's up to. You're in a completely different part of the world with its own bustling scene, its own brands that are emerging and have been emerging for a number of years now. And there's no one really better positioned in that space than yourself. So if you could, mate, would you mind giving us or me and the listeners a bit of an insight, a bit of an overview of the Nordics when it comes to watches? What is the Nordic watch scene? How does that look? How does it feel? Is it in its infancy? Is it maturing? I mean, talk to us. Tell us about that place, mate, if you can.
To be fair, I haven't done enough research in the past, but there is a lot of history with a brand called Halda, one of the very first brands that made a wristwatch that competed with Patek and with Breitling, I think, many years ago in the 50s, 60s or something like that. Honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But Halda is the oldest brand in Sweden and one of the oldest brands in the Nordics. And then the other oldest brand that I know is from Finland. It's 106-7 years old,
Wow.
Leona. Those two are... And you know what? Leona is the first micro brand per se from the Nordics. They started as a micro brand in the same way a micro brand starts today. They were buying parts, they were assembling them. They even made gold cases in Finland to those movements they could source from Switzerland. So it's over 100 years old micro brand, and it still exists, and they've never been out of business. They have continuously sold watches. Today there is so many brands. We can basically, if you want, we can go through a bunch of brands from different countries. But Finland, for example, we have probably the most independent watchmakers per capita in the Nordics.
Okay. We
have Jorma Sarpaneva, we have the Moto, we have the Leona Heritage, we have Aitokoski, Rajaman Kelotehtas, we have the Rebuild Watch Company, Juha Eskula, I'm missing some. We have so many independent watchmakers because of the Finnish school of watchmaking, which is very prominent, very good school.
Right.
So a lot of talent. I've heard that back in the days, Eterna used to come and take students from the Finnish School of Watchmaking because they had very high work ethics.
Wow.
I don't know if it's a rumor, but it sounds like true.
There's a saying, mate, you never let the truth get in the way of a good dit. And that's let's take it for what it is, mate.
Especially after a couple of pints.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what a fascinating thought. Do you know what I mean? The tuner coming up and handpicking guys to bring them back and say, right, okay, well, clearly these are, this is what we're after, and we're willing to travel to get them. Fascinating story, fascinating. So Finland's got its own scene, its own brands, and I imagine they exist in multiple price ranges. So you've got some stuff that's...
we can... You start with the independents. Jorma Sarpaneva, Demoto, and Leona, they are like they're very different brands. Sarpaneva has very, very unique high-end craftsmanship, unique design, very big fan base, and his watches are signature. They're incredible. And up to date, one of the best bracelets in the world, really? I kid you not.
Wow.
And then we have the Demoto with the aviation watches, very high quality, well built. I own one. They're indestructible. Then we have the Jorma watches, the most customizable watch brand probably in Europe.
Yeah.
If not else, you dream it, they make it.
Yeah.
It's that crazy. Then we have the Leona Heritage, not the normal. There are two Leonas. The Leona Heritage is built on the legacy of the old Leona, which means lion.
Yeah.
And the Leona Heritage is connected to Kari Voutilainen, who is one of the top dogs in the horology scene in Switzerland and worldwide.
Yeah.
And those are insane craftsmanship. The level of the dial is the level of Omega and the likes.
Wow.
Same with the cases. They're really, really high end. And at the same time, they are less than $4,000.
Wow.
You can have kind of Voutilainen involvement, Voutilainen level quality on your wrist for less than $5,000 or $4,000. It's
when you're saying
insane.
4 and 5 grand, what are we talking? Pounds, euros, pesetas? How
Euros,
much? Euros. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we use euros in Finland as well. So
yeah.
But you can easily get for $4,000 something that Voutilainen has been involved in designing and producing, which is, to me, it's bananas because, I mean, in 5 years, he'll be retired. You cannot get anymore the master himself, something that has been involved with, unless you go secondhand. Then we have Sweden, and Sweden have a different watch scene than us. They're much better in promoting their horology. They're much better in being brave in designs, if you will. They're more creative in design. I know I shouldn't say that because my Finnish audience will crucify me, but in a broad sense, they're really creative and brave to create crazy designs and crazy case shapes and all that. So we have Sjö Sandström from Stockholm. That's probably the most well-known worldwide Nordic brand because they've been very long in the business. Then we have Panzer by Sweden. It's a very new brand, but super high-end craftsmanship. And what they make is very, very unique for the people with money, of course.
Yeah.
And it's all made in Sweden. Then we have Halda, and Halda has sent 6 or 7 watches to space, and they all have come back successfully without issues.
Wow.
Yeah, then the Grand Prix, the racing, they have done so many achievements that are unique to independent watchmaker that it's unheard of, and they make everything in-house in Sweden. Then we have the smaller ones or the micro brands, Bravur, really high Swiss quality made watches. Then we have Mayen, which is again micro brand but very high quality. We have Pedral. Here comes the very brave and creative brand. I really like actually Pedral. I want to own more of them.
Okay.
Because it's not just a watch. It's also the team behind the brand, their values, how they communicate with the watch community, and what they want to leave as a legacy.
Yeah.
So, and then we have DC Anderson, a brand that I'm a big fan of. They also make very creative watches, and still it's considered a micro brand, but they're on the level of micro independent. They make a lot of in-house with some bought parts. Then we have the Norwegians, and again, different scene. Norwegian have a lot of more money, so you have more premium materials, tougher watches because of the tougher climate. So a lot more diverse watches, tool watches. We have Bragadur or Bragdur. That's brand that you would like a lot. Their watches are built like tanks. You can drive with cars over them. They're built that way.
Yeah.
And he's a police officer. He's what's the word when you work in a jail?
Like
you keep
a
the
prison
order.
guard.
Prison guard, yeah.
Yeah.
So he started making these watches from that perspective that they have to survive anything and everything.
Right.
And they still do. They make really tough watches. Then you have Von Duren, a famous filmmaker with visionary guy. He makes very interesting watches. With him, the story is the starting point, and all his watches have crazy stories. Then we have the Radium, which you're personally introduced to. You like them, I understood.
Thanks to you.
Then we have the micro brands. Thank you. Then we have Aigi and Ström, which are micro brands, but again, all of them are very highly waterproof, well built, ready for anything and everything. And the last one I would mention is the Sanders. And the Sanders carries a new generation of creating bravery, if you will, because now the Norwegian scene online is the biggest in the Nordics. They have the biggest Facebook group. So a lot is happening inside the Facebook group. And the brands that get the most support seems to be the most creative in my eyes. So all the brands I mentioned today, Von Duren, Bragdur, the Sanders, Aigi, Radium, and Ström, they are brands that get a lot of support, a lot of push from the community, and they create more and more interesting watches. Then the Danish market is more conservative, I would say, but at the same time, very consistent and very quality oriented, like in terms of finishing and in terms of presentation. Because Ullin has been there for a very long time. That's a signature brand that they've been working with the royal court for many, many years. They're now actually making watches in Denmark. They have established this presence that kind of demand to continue that legacy. So everything else from Denmark is quietly sophisticated, but understated in a way. A lot of classic watches, again, very well built as well. Sorry?
No, I'm listening. Please continue. Don't let me interrupt you, mate. This whole thing's fascinating to me because I've visited pretty much every country in the Nordics. I've been to Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark. I've been everywhere. And I understand there's slight differences and slight... each country's got its own fingerprint in its style, its design, its everything else. So as you're talking through these countries, like things are clicking in. Norway, okay, very arduous, difficult environment. Tool watches, makes a lot of sense. Sweden, Stockholm, amazing city. A fantastic place. So then you're talking about, right, well, stuff out here is slightly more refined and it's a little different to what you get. But I in my head, I'm traveling. I'm with you. Do you know what I mean? Trying to understand or envisage the design language that's going to be used that's specific to these countries. And the minute you started talking about Denmark, I'm like, oh, right, the mermaid. I remember Copenhagen. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I remember Copenhagen. And again, thinking about the design language, the architecture, what people are surrounded by there, what they see every day, and how that will have an impact into the design. So I'm mentally following you, mate. So please don't let me stop you. Please continue with Denmark.
And you know, the humor is very different from country to country. Yeah. The way we joke in Finland doesn't work in Denmark or in Sweden. Yeah. And we have so many jokes about each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, you know, like you guys have it on the island. So, yeah. But what is the most interesting is for me as a watch nerd is the watch community, how different we are. Because I feel when I go to Sweden, design is so important.
Yes.
Ergonomics are so important.
Yeah.
They are obsessed with how it's going to look with all my clothes, not just with the office clothes, but with all my clothes. It seems like watch purchases are a little bit more educated purchase based on design choice.
Yeah.
In Finland, we want to experiment. We want to learn what is to live with different movements, with different sizes, with different designs. There is this thing in what I see from our local Facebook group, and we have a very active, over 30,000 active member of the Kello Harrastajat is the watch group. And then when you go to Norway, education. I don't know if it's for flex sake or what, but when I talk to Norwegians there is an event in Norway called Oslo Swap Meet. The level of education I meet there is almost intimidating.
Really?
People, it feels like they read before the event just to come and rub it up your nose. It feels that way. It's so much knowledge. Yeah. And then you go to Denmark and they're so polite and understated. They don't want to shove any knowledge in your face. They're listening very careful to what you're going to say. They agree with everything you say. And then in the end, they tell you their opinion in such a calm manner. They don't want to tell you what they think. They just want to share a little bit of what they think. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, sir, go on.
Mate, it's fascinating. I mean, it's similar here. We have the Scots, the Irish, the Welsh, the English, and even within those groups, there are separate groups, you know, independent of each other. You know, Northerners, Southerners, Scousers, Manx, South Walians, Chuktas. Do you know what I mean? Glaswegians. Mate, it's fascinating.
Oh yeah.
It's tribal, and I think a lot of Northern Europe is that way simply because of how Europe developed over time. Do you know what I mean? So to have and to learn, it's not just us; it's the same. You know, for the Nordics, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we picked up an awful lot of Nordic culture in the UK. It's worked its way in the English language, you know, over thousands of years. So it's just fascinating. It's fascinating to hear.
It's a lot that is dependent on climate, I think.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
People say that I have friends from Eastern Europe. because I went to school that had international programs.
Yeah.
And they said that they've never seen another country with women wearing so many trousers. I said, well, it's
Really?
cold.
Yeah.
It's needed.
Yeah. That's
It's,
fair.
culture, mate.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, and you see how it talks into design language as well. You see it. You can see it in everything. I mean, you look at cars, even. You know what I mean? Look at what the Italians are putting together. It suits the culture, it suits the environment they're in. You look at.
Well, I think that's an exception in Finland, because if you see our car, which is Talbot.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. What were they thinking?
It's utilitarian, I think, if anything. You know what I mean? It's there.
But in agriculture, we are very big in Finland. What we make for agriculture, we have companies like Elko, Valmet, Valtra, and we make Mercedes.
Oh, really?
But if you go back to the watches from Denmark, I think I was said Ole Mathisen. Then there are two brands that you would like quite a bit. REC is one of them, and it's REC, not REC. And they make watches made from planes, important planes, cars, and they have a watch made from the car you're driving.
Ah, the Defender.
Ah.
Okay, I'll check that out.
It's fascinating brand, really cool owner, cool concept, and he puts all the money into the watch. I like that. His concept is, I want to give the most watch I can to the customer. The other brand that does that from Denmark is Henry Archer, which is probably the most popular Danish brand at the moment worldwide, because they're just very brave into colors, into materials, into high-end polishing. Even though they're very, very affordable, they're about 600 to 800 euro watches. They have a very good supplier, apparently, because I've been checking their watches from their infancy until today, and the quality has just increased exponentially. It's a lot of value. And he's the exception from Denmark. He's not conservative at all.
He just does his own thing.
Yeah, his own thing, and it sells. And the last one is Iceland. One of my favorite brands in my whole life. One of my Grail watches, which I actually have, is GS watches from Iceland. What a incredible brand. Think Up to Date. That's one of the top 3 episodes I've made with a guest.
Yep.
Just because it was a magic. Everything that happened in Iceland, the way I went there to repair my watch with the master watchmaker, and their wall of fame. We have De Niro, you have Dalai Lama and Gordon Ramsay, and then it's me. it's
That's a good solid win, mate. That.
Yeah, I take it, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what they do is phenomenal. They really, their concept is, let's make the best we can, the way we like it. It's a bit of a, honestly, the most common watchmaker's approach. I make it if I like it, or make it that I like it, and if somebody appreciates it, they buy it. That's the attitude, and that's most of watchmakers have the same attitude. But you know what? It works because they make watches for themselves, kind of. They say that, and they're sold all the time, more or less.
That's what you like to see. It's
It
makes a difference when the and this is going to sound weird saying it because it almost counterintuitive, but some watch companies are not run by watch guys. Some are. And when they are, you really feel it and you really see the difference, and it stands out and it does well, and the community eat it up. And that's epic. I mean, it's nice to hear that's happening. All of these countries, mate, they've got their own flair, their own vibe, their own everything. You've already mentioned there's a Facebook group, but is there a meetup? Is there a get together? Is there something that happens where everyone gets together in one place and exhibits or meets the public? Is that a thing up there?
The biggest one in Finland is the Finnish Watch Show, and that's the biggest one in the Nordics. That's the top event at the moment. Very close, followed by Stockholm Time, which I've been involved from the very beginning, organizing and picking the brands and all that. And they're very different from each other. The Watch Show Finland is open for many different brands, also grey market dealers. It's very diverse. You can see independent watchmakers, you can see micro brands, you can see Oris Eterna and the likes, and then you see a Rolex, and then you see Patek, Richard Mille. You can see anything and everything. Then you see the School of Watchmaking have a table there showing their stuff. Then you have, it's very big. It's very big.
So
and
is that an annual thing?
Yeah.
Does that happen every year?
Yeah, every year, every May.
Oh, okay.
It's a fantastic show. It's 2 days.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday. On Friday, there is a alcohol degustation or something like that. That's the meet and greet. People come to meet mostly after 7 o'clock. It's until 11 on Friday.
Yeah.
So people come and literally just, that's a good place to trade watches or buy a watch that you've been itching to see, but there is nowhere to see it because it's either a rare watch or a watch that is maybe a grey market or a watch that have just come and nobody have seen yet. Then we have the Stockholm time. That's only Nordic watch event, and still there is around 30 or 35 participant brands that come to this place, and it's strictly from, again, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Iceland, and Faroe Island, but there is no watchmakers there. And that's predominantly independent watchmakers, micro brands, a lot of micro brands, and some watchmakers that are beginning to be independent watchmakers. Very different atmosphere, a lot of hugging. Swedish people, they hug a lot. Goodness gracious. It's very cozy. In Finland, it's a little bit more grand. In Finland, it's a very big space, very roomy, music and all that. It's quite grand. Then in Sweden, it's more cozy. The space is the same size, kind of, but it's a little bit small, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's more cozier light, cozier environment. And Swedish people, they are more cozy people in general. They smile a lot. They will chat with you forever. They're not all business like we are in Finland. So a lot of chatting. It's different environment. I actually quite like it because I consider myself as a Swedish-speaking Finn. In Finland we have two lingual situation. So I'm from the 400,000 minority that speaks Swedish. So I speak the language. So when I go there, I'm attached more to that. But at the same time, you see different brands. You see the Swedish brands, you see the Norwegian brands that don't come to Finland.
Right.
And then you meet their community, their people, their watch nerds.
This podcast is sponsored by ZuluAlphaStraps.com. ZuluAlphaStraps makes some of the best watch straps in the market, and we do it all here in the UK by hand. As a listener of the Making Time podcast, you can enjoy 15% off on your next order by using the discount code MakingTime15. Your support makes this podcast possible, so please head over to ZuluAlphaStraps.com so we can continue to bring you fresh content. Now, back to the show. It's fantastic, isn't it, when things overlap and you get to meet, as you say, their community, their people, and their watch nerds. And fundamentally, we all are watch nerds, mate. That's not an insult. That's just a fact, myself included. These shows, you mentioned there 30 to 35 brands. The one in Finland and the one in Stockholm are somewhat similar in size, etc. Are there strict rules around who can exhibit in these shows? So, for example, if you're a British brand and you wanted to exhibit in the Stockholm show, could you do it? Or is it only for Nordic brands?
Yeah, it's Nordic brands strictly. In Finland, you can do it. You can contact the organizer. He speaks English. He speaks... I don't know if he speaks Swedish, but he speaks at least English and Finnish. So he will accommodate a brand if the brand kind of fits with the concept of the event.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm making copycats watches, I'm probably not invited, or surely not invited.
Of course.
Or some kind of, let's call them homages.
Yes.
So that won't fly. Or if I sell, let's say. Actually, I don't know really, but most brands that have a respectable product will be probably invited to the Watch Show Finland. If there is space, of course, if you have still tables available, because the space have some limitations. But there's a couple of other events in Finland. We have the Style Fellow, organized by Tulinjaka. It's a magazine, lifestyle magazine that emphasizes a lot on watches. Matti, who is the general editor, he's a total watch nerd, and he's world known for being that, for promoting other brands in Finland. He's one of the men to go if you want to be known in Finland. And his event is also very different. It's more smaller, cozier. It's more of a local event, if you will. It's more low key.
Yeah.
There you can be more comfortable of bringing your watches to trade with somebody. People are more comfortable to bring literally a backpack full of watches and show around to their friends.
Yeah.
I quite like that one. And then there is one in Turku called Evening of Lights, which is part of the Evening of Lights concept of Turku city. And that is also very, very beautiful, one of the most beautiful venues in that part of the world. That one is open to everybody. There is a grey market, there is vintage watches, secondhand, there is anything and everything. And that place is basically more targeted towards newbies, people that don't know much. Let's educate them. Let's give them some...
Just entering the hobby.
Of course, yeah, I haven't been that many times to understand the concept fully, but it's very energetic. So if you're a newbie in the hobby, I would invite you to that place, because you get a very good first impression of the watch community, because a lot of people come from the watch community to see each other and to see the new stuff. This year, the star of the show was the new Sarpaneva Solomon dial, and a lot of people travel from all parts of Finland just to see that watch.
Wow.
Same with the new Jurmo. Jurmo has this skeleton movement skeleton watch. A lot of people travel just to see that watch. It's quite cool to see the watch community just coming to celebrate the work of watchmakers in a way.
Yeah. It's epic, mate. I think it's happening here in the UK. We have the British Watchmaker and Clockmaker show, and the entire community turned out to that earlier on this year, and just celebrated the fact that this is happening here. And it's great to hear that it's being celebrated, that it's happening there. How big are these shows, mate? Obviously, we've got 30, 35 brands. But I mean, what's the footfall like? How many people do you have attending these events? You know, the biggest one, for example, in Finland, is that, are we talking thousands of people turning up to these things? Is that, or is it depending on the show?
Oh, yeah. The Watch Show Finland is definitely a couple of thousand people for sure.
Wow.
Per day. Like the one after COVID, it was many thousands. There was you couldn't drop a pin. It was so crowded. It was so many people, and a lot of watches were sold. People were like hungry to see other people and to see other, like the community, and to see watches and all that. And then the Oslo Swap Meet, I think about 400 people come to those events in Norway. Yeah. I've been there a couple of times. Again, different energy, a lot of knowledge talk, a lot of depth talk, and again, educated purchase and higher price purchase. Most Norwegian brands also have a higher price tag. Then the one in the Style Fellow, few hundred, I don't know how many, couple of hundred maybe. Yeah. It's not that big. It's more of a local event. Yeah. The one in Turku is several hundred as well. That's probably bigger. So if you were and then the one in Stockholm, probably, sorry.
No, carry on, please. I thought you finished.
The one in Stockholm, I think it was like 500-600 people, and it's only one day from 11 to 5-6 o'clock.
So if you were from Britain, Ireland, France, Germany, Belgium, you know, anywhere that isn't in the Nordics, that's got accessibility to these shows with just a short flight, really, which one would you recommend for someone to go and visit? What would be the main one to go and check out if you wanted to try and get an understanding of the Nordic brands, the Nordic scene, but also, you know, have an easy time of getting in and out of town and figuring out these places? Where would you send me for my first show? That's the question.
price-wise,
Yeah.
Stockholm.
Okay.
And strictly Nordic watches, Stockholm, because you will see the Nordic watches, you will see the Nordic scene, you will be surrounded by Nordic nerds that have come just to see the Nordic watches. It's very Nordic oriented. And then the prices will be lower. The hotels are cheaper, the food is cheaper, Sweden is cheaper, and now when the crown is trashing, it's very cheap compared to Sweden and to Finland and Norway.
Yep.
But the one in Oslo is very cozy as well. You will see a couple of Nordic brands there as well. It's very different. You will see higher end watches as well. If you find a good flight, visit Oslo as well. I think you won't be disappointed, because you might learn something because people know a lot.
Yep.
Then the one in Finland will be the most grand. It's a big, big, big event. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of energy. First impression, probably that will be the most memorable because of how big it is. There is luxury cars inside the venue. There is food there's food on all the events, but there is outdoor, indoor. It's such a grand place that you will get more. And then the one in Finland, you will see people that you will never see anywhere else, like Stepan Sarpaneva, who is a legend in the watch world, and then Kari Voutilainen, who doesn't want to go and shake Kari Voutilainen's hand while he's in business. That's probably a selling point for some. To me, I go every year. That's one of my main reasons. I want to go and talk to the man. And he's super kind. This year, he talked to me like for 40 minutes. The nicest guy. And he makes one of the most expensive watches in the world.
Fascinating.
So that's a selling point for some people. People just want to see Kari Voutilainen and touch his watches, because you can't afford €150,000 watch. There's no way.
Yeah. You still want to see it though, and feel it, and sniff it, and hold it.
I've touched several of them, and every time I'm shaking,
Mate, I'd be terrified.
My insurance can't cover that.
I don't think many of our insurances could cover that, mate. So it's definitely worth jumping a flight and heading north and trying to figure out what's going on up there. I mean, for me, I love the design language. I fell in love with a brand called Radium a while ago. I stumbled across them online and had the opportunity to get hands-on with one thanks to you, and a fabulous brand, but distinctly its own design language, and you can feel the Nordic spirit in it. You can feel it comes out of that part of the world, this and the other. So if you are looking for a little weekend break or traveling to try and understand what's going on in this part of the world, I highly recommend jump on one of these shows. And mate, perhaps you can shoot an email over post recording with some links to these shows and some of these brands, and then we can put them in the show notes at the bottom as well. So if you are watching,
with pleasure,
head down to the bit down by there, and you'll find all the stuff to go on.
That's what I do. That's why I created the podcast.
Absolutely, mate. Perfect. So you've got your own podcast as well, mate. Talk to us about your podcast.
Yeah. The podcast is called Beyond Horology Podcast. Funny enough, the name is because of England.
Okay.
Because my previous podcast name was Chasing Time.
Yeah.
And a guy from UK wrote a book about chasing time. And he contacted me and was like, yo, what are you doing? I was like, running a podcast. But that's my name. So he sent me pictures of the book, and I was like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So we changed the name, of course. I mean, I don't make money for it. I will explain this as well. Yeah. So we changed the name to Beyond Horology Podcast. But the podcast started as Chasing Time, and in the very beginning, it was just, to be honest, it was because my YouTube channel got cancelled in a way. I used copyright music by accident. I didn't know, so I didn't want to pay the fine. I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
It was quite many videos to deal with, to edit. So I was like, okay, let's quit the YouTube and do a podcast. My buddy Juho Perala, who has YouTube channel, he said, okay, let's do it. Let's have a couple of episodes and see how people will like it.
Yeah.
And the first episode got like 300-400 downloads. I was like, there's no way. Come on. I got excited,
Yeah.
And very early in the game, I wanted the podcast to have a meaning, to have a go, because it's free.
Yeah.
I pay for everything from pocket.
Yeah.
Now I have donations now and then, friends and family and listeners, but mainly I do this from pocket. So editing, software, studio time, everything is free. So, I mean, free in the sense that the listeners don't have to listen to commercials when they listen to the podcast. And the main goal is to highlight and celebrate Nordic horology and Nordic watches, everything that is Nordic, in the form of podcasts. And, podcasts gives all these brands opportunity to tell their story in a longer format. It gives the listeners also a chance to connect with, on an emotional level with the founder of their, let's say, newfound favorite brand. The brands have the chance to charm the listeners in a different way, in a very special way, in my opinion, because, the presenter of the brand, he doesn't have to shave, he doesn't have to look good, he doesn't have to dress up to come and be on the podcast, because it's purely audio. We don't have video like you, because we can't afford video editor, probably.
Well, because we pay for the videos, I can't afford to shave. That's it's a trade-off, mate. Something's got to give, hasn't it?
You crack me. But you see, the brand presenter doesn't have to even, smell nice or shave. Yeah. He just have to just show up and share the passion he lives with.
Yep.
And it's such a forgiving format compared to YouTube in a way, the podcast. And it's much longer.
Yeah.
Not in your case, but most of the time podcast is longer than video format. And, we spend more time in cars than ever before in history, because we're getting lazier, because we take jobs further away, because technology allows us, and now especially with electric cars. So people spend time in cars a lot more.
Yeah.
So the number of quality entertainment with low safety precautions, it's very limited. Podcast is basically the best safe entertainment in your car. It's safer than your thoughts, somebody said.
Safer than what, sorry?
Than your own thoughts. You can get more lost in your own thoughts than listening to a podcast.
Yeah, pardon me, mate. Yeah. I thought you said toads.
Sorry, my Finnish English.
My apologies, mate. That's my fault, not yours. You completely threw me there. It's just safer than your own toads. I was like, what thoughts? Right, okay. That's the joys of it, mate. And on that, I must commend you as well, because you're doing this podcast in English across a video link, and I'm not educated enough to speak any of the other languages that you're absolutely fluent in. So, forgive me, mate. But yeah, I agree. I think podcasting is exactly that, and you can disappear into a story, whether you're driving. I always do it when I'm doing work around the house. I'll always listen to a podcast if I'm doing some gardening, or if I'm organized in a garage, or whatever it is. I've got my headphones in, and I can just be somewhere else mentally whilst I'm conducting a task at hand. And escapism, again, it allows us to go on a journey with whoever's talking about the topic, and be somewhere else for a small time. But you focused heavily on the Nordic brands and the Nordic scenes. Your recordings, are they in your local language, or do you record in English? Is it accessible for
only in English? The podcast is only in English.
Okay.
We don't record in any other language. I mean, with the guests, I can speak Swedish or Norwegian with the guests, depending on the guest.
Yeah.
My Norwegian is not great. I understand it very well, but I don't speak it so well.
Okay.
So with the guests, I can speak in their own languages, but I record only in English, because the goal is to promote Nordic horology for free to the world.
Of course.
But basically put Nordic horology on the world stage through podcast. And I know this is going to sound very the opposite of humble, but I was the first to do just that. And after that, it has been a snowball effect. The Stockholm time, then now is the Norwegian watchmaking. There is a bunch of other people, like Svenska Klockkanalen. It's a YouTube channel that promotes heavily now Swedish and Nordic watches. It has snowballed. It has kind of spread the love for Nordic watches, and that makes me very, very happy.
Mate, it's epic. That's epic. It's certainly for me and many of my close circle friends, etc. It's a hidden treasure trove what you guys have got going on up there, and to hear that you guys are banging the drum and trying to let everyone know what's happening, it's phenomenal. It's great to see. Do you know what I mean? It's great to see. So
that's a good way to put it,
mate. 100%. And
beating the drum. I love that expression.
You've got to bang a drum, mate. It's that simple, and you're doing it. So hats off to you, mate. And I implore my listeners to head over to your podcast, mate, and check out some of these brands. There's an awful lot we've established throughout this conversation, mate, that's going on. Now, what I'd like to do, probably fairly or unfairly, check out as much as you can. Do you know what I mean, guys? But if we were to point someone in the direction of certain categories of watches as an introduction into the scene, where would you point someone interested in a tool watch, a dive watch, a tool watch, something, what brand should they check out for that?
Depending on the budget.
Okay.
Because if you want entry-level, affordable tool watch, you can get one from Henry Archer for 500 euros.
Yeah.
And the build quality, the ergonomics, the design, it's the most versatile in terms of size.
Yeah.
And it will appeal to the wider audience, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because the black and the white dials that he makes, they are very versatile, and the cases they work for very wide wrist size audience.
So that's Henry Archer, and where are they based, mate?
From Denmark.
Henry Archer from Denmark. Okay.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, at the same time, I would say from Sweden, Pedral watches, they're entry level. They're not entry level. They're micro brand as all others, but the design there is very interesting. The ergonomics are superb. That's, for me, it's very important that when you begin with the watches, you don't want to just buy something that you would trade immediately afterwards. You need to spend at least 3-4 months with the watch to understand it as a newbie.
Yeah.
And a well-designed watch does that to you. Of course, there are all the Seikos and Citizens, but from the Nordics, I think those two are very, very good. There's so many.
Yeah, of course. But
mine is good as well. Aigi from Norway, if you want something from Norway, distinct design, good ergonomics, and that's actually the most affordable maybe.
Yeah.
Around 300 euro, you can get the Mecha Quartz chronograph.
Wow.
Very well built and designed.
So if you were looking for a pilot's watch from the Nordics, where would you point someone?
Difficult one. My first choice will be probably Demoto, because they specialize in that, and the quality is very high. The price tag is also quite high. You will spend minimum of £1,500, 1,600-700 euros. If you want something higher in price and quality, you go to Von Duren. They have a very good chronograph with Le Jouperet movement. Execution quality is just out there. Then you have Sjö Sandström. Oh, of course, Sjö Sandström. Come on. Sjö Sandström has several chronographs that will just blow your socks off because they're partly in-house made, high quality, about the same price, 2-3 grand. You get an incredible pilot. They supply watches for the Navy and for several squadrons. Then also from Sweden, pilot will be Malm watches. They specialize in pilot watches. They literally live in the pilot capital of Sweden, Linköping. So they have quite many chronographs, and they're not expensive. They're affordable. And of course, if you want to splash much money, you can make a completely custom, one-of-one piece unique to your liking for under 10 grand with Jorma Watches Finland. I think that will be the best you can do, because then you get super custom watch, one-of-one that nobody else in the world will have. And the quality will be, again, top.
Sensational
For sure, for sure. I own Jorma watch. I know the level of execution. I know what to expect.
Fantastic. Mate, that's fascinating. What about the dress watches? Where would you point a newbie in that direction interested in the Nordic scene?
Price point? Shall we start from the cheap and
Yeah.
from the affordable? Not cheap. I hate that word.
Yeah,
Cheap.
inexpensive.
From the affordable, inexpensive dress watch, I'll probably start with. The most affordable will be from Sweden, and that will be a brand that no one have heard of, and that's Åke Falk.
Yeah.
They are very big in Asia, but not in Europe. Funny enough, they make very well built watches for 200 euros.
Wow.
They also have chronograph, but they have these 24-hour dials, and they're convex dials with double dome crystals. The effect is mesmerizing. Waterproof, screw down crown, very well built watches for 200 euros. That will be my entry level. Then I will go to probably for dress. There is quite a big competition there, I think. Bravur makes very beautiful dress watches from Sweden. They're all Swiss made, so you get a quite high level of finish and execution and build quality. Then you have Pedral makes beautiful dress watches. I like what they do. Easy Anderson, no, not Easy, sorry. If you want to spend more, then you go to Epoch Stockholm. They make really, really fancy, if you will, Swiss-made dress watches. Neumann from Sweden as well make dress watches. There's actually quite many Nordic brands that, after Daniel Wellington, which guys, buy only if you have to. I wouldn't. But after them, a lot dress watches, many dress watches have come from Sweden that are actually quite good quality.
Yeah.
And if you have money, GS watches from Iceland, the level of execution, the Swiss-made, the design, the unique design with dress watches they do, it's fantastic. I'm probably going to miss something, and afterwards somebody's going to text me, "Oh, you forgot this and that."
That always happens, mate. Do you know what I mean? And all we can do here again is bang the drum as best we can. While we're having a conversation, I'm sure that there's a plethora of other options out there, and there's a range of other brands, and this information is only relevant at the time of recording. You know what I mean? Which for us is the tail end of summer 24. Things live on the internet for a long time, and someone could be hearing this in 2 years' time, and there may be a new brand on the scene making things happen. But it's
I probably should mention Z.A Strap when it comes to dress watches, because they make the most expensive catalog dress watch made of gold.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the royal model, and they have it in royal steel and white and rose gold, and that's literally cut from their catalog gold watch that you can purchase on the spot. And that is, as you said earlier, very good word, sensational level of execution.
The more you see watches, mate, and the longer you spend in this space, the more particular you become on how you start throwing words like sensational around. That's just due to greater exposure of different brands, different things, different finishes, different feels, different everything. And after a certain while, you start to understand what is quality, what's been done to achieve a certain price point, and the very, very, very rare occasion you'll stumble across something that just isn't quite right. But that's part and parcel of going through this motion and going through this process of throwing yourself into this hobby. What I'm trying to do here is our listeners are predominantly UK, US based, and I know a lot of our listeners and a lot of the people in these countries can follow their heritage back to the Nordics. And what a cool thing to do to have someone like you on a podcast, mate, where you can almost give a cheat code, be like, right, okay, so you like divers, go and check this brand out. You like field watches, go and check this brand out. You like, and people can circumvent a huge portion of navigation around that scene there, and try and find what they're looking for, something that's going to resonate with them. And as we talked about it earlier, it's a huge portion of this is the clowns, it's not the circus as well. So you buy into the brand, you buy into the people, you buy into the idea, the methodology, what they're trying to achieve. And this, I suppose, what from my side of the house, I'm just trying to, number one, help you bang that drum a little bit, because I know there's stuff happening up there.
I appreciate that.
And I know folks need to check this stuff out, but also give a little cheat code to the guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, right, this thing's happening, head this way, look in that direction, have a look at this. It just makes it far more accessible. So there's a huge scene happening, mate, in and around you. What do you see the future of Nordic watches as, mate? What's going to happen? What's coming?
It's exploding at the moment because of the events. There's more and more events. There is more and more newbies that become hardcore watch nerds. So I hope it's not peaking, because I can see it's growing with time. The future of the industry itself, it's moving towards independent. Appreciation of independent watchmaking has gone through the roof. The amount of custom watches, the amount of independent watches that have been sold in the last 2.5 years, to my knowledge, my data available to me, has grown almost 3 times than pre-pandemic. three times more people are buying independent watchmaking. And that is fantastic. That means people like Jurmo Sarpaneva, the Moto, that are making watches in-house, they can spend more, they can earn more and spend more money in the R&D, developing new technology, buying more machinery to develop better product for our sake, the consumer. The micro brand has changed as well. There is more intentional brand starting. There is more research before starting brands, because I have to be honest with the listeners, I consult as well for free. People ask me for my opinion. I give my opinion. I want to help brands to succeed, especially if I really see that the brand deserves it. For what I see today, there is much more intention in starting a brand, more research, more not segregation. I don't know the right word, but people don't want to make the same as somebody else.
Yeah.
They try to make something different, so they don't want to step on toes. They want to find their own place in the watch market, which just look 5-6 years ago, microbrand was exploding. It was a jungle. Everybody was making similar things. It was because of the 28-24 ETA, because of the movements and so on. People were making the same things. Now there is kind of division, I don't know the right word, but people making their own thing, and they don't want to step into somebody else's territory. And I like that, because then the consumer doesn't have to choose between this diver and that diver. And it's when things are too similar, yes, it's good for the market as well, but for the watch nerd consumer, it makes it a little bit weird, especially if it's your own country. If you have 5 brands and they all make good divers at the same time,
yeah,
I won't be happy.
Of course, yeah. Or you got to rob a bank and buy them all. They're your only options. But we do not condone robbing banks.
Say no more. because I can't sell my mother-in-law. She's not sellable. We have those jokes here. Don't worry.
No, we have them here too, mate. We have them here too. I'm just, I'm far too wise to joke about my mother-in-law, because she listens to this podcast and she will.
No way.
Yeah,
wow.
Mate, religiously.
You did well, brother.
Mate, she's good as gold. Ali, I know you're listening. I'm listening. You know, all the love. He said it, not me. Don't blame me.
Respect to you, Ali.
Well, mate, as we've touched on, there's a lot happening. There's certain buzzes going on up in and around the Arctic Circle where people need to check out and need to start seeing things. And for me, this was a bit of an insight, a bit of an overview, really. It's not a deep dive by any stretch. Perhaps as time goes on, we can have conversations with certain brands, you know, through your recommendation,
pleasure,
mate, and tell these stories with a bit more depth on them. All we wanted to do with this episode is let people know what's going on, where to start to look, to see what's happening, and also, give you a bit of an introduction, or our crowd a bit of an introduction to you, mate, and what you're up to as well. So thank you for joining us, mate, and I hope the listeners took quite a bit out of that. Where can the people find you, pal?
Mostly Instagram and all the main podcast channels. We don't have a website, we don't have a Facebook. Everything is through the Instagram and podcast platforms.
And that's
Spotify, Apple Podcast.
Beyond Horology?
Beyond Horology Podcast.
Perfect. And Instagram is the same?
Beyond Horology Pod.
Perfect. Nico, thank you very much for your time, mate. It's been epic having this conversation with you and getting a greater understanding on what's going on in your part of the world, and I'm very, very grateful. I look forward to catching you soon, mate.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm looking forward to meet you again. We had a blast last time we met. I'm looking forward to come and visit you again, and appreciate your time, mate.
The next time, mate, there will be beer involved. I guarantee that. We have beers. Guys, until next time, thank you.